Good evening, Cubs and Cardinals fans. It is September 6th, and this week in baseball, we ask, is Brandon Morrow done? The umpires really not like Joe Madden. Shohei Ohtani, Tommy John surgery. We didn't see that one coming. Josh Donaldson starts his tenure in Cleveland on the DL. We're going to talk about a very tight race in the wild card in the National League and the race in the National League Central, looking at all the schedules, all the matchups coming up. The Team of Rivals podcast starts now.
Smith corks one into right, down the line. It may go. Go crazy, folks. Go crazy. There's a drive. Way back. It might be. It's one baby. We're going to high drive into left. Back goes the Craig. He's at the track. He has it. The Cardinals World Champion for 2011. A little bouncer slowly toward Bryant. He will glove it toward Rizzo. It's in time, and the Chicago Cubs win the World Series.
This is the Team of Rivals podcast. No insiders, no anonymous sources, just passionate analysis from the bleacher seats. Here are your hosts, Ron, Pete, and Elliott.
All right, everyone, and welcome back to this week's show. We are. Oh, wait a minute. There is Elliott. I thought we lost you, Elliott, because you're my only co-pilot at the moment, and so I don't think I could do this thing solo.
You were going to be all by yourself.
Oh my God! Now I have to talk to myself. I have to do plenty throughout the day anyway, so I guess maybe I can hang. Pete will be calling in at any moment. He is on his way home. He's making the trek home, so he can join us face to face. But he'll be calling in the car to start out with. So we had some topics to cover tonight. I mentioned them a little bit in the intro. It's going to be a real interesting few weeks coming up. And I know as the Cubs have what you would call it with 20 some odd games left. I think that 4 games feels like a bit of a cushion, but I think we're going to take a look once Pete's on and settled. We're going to take a look at the schedules together and kind of come to determine, okay, who's got their position locked in right now. We feel comfortable. We put a wager down on it. What's still up in the air, because we have still what many would call a very tight race in the wild card, at least for the wild card positions. And flashback to 2015, I talked about this on the show I just got off of. Flashback to 2015, as far as the National League Central, we have the top 3 teams in the league right now, if you're looking at record, in the Central Division. And I think that was kind of, we felt that was an outside shot. Felt strongly before we started the year that one of the wild card teams would definitely come out of the West. And we felt that the Central had a really good shot at it too. But we look around baseball and it's not confusing anymore, because now we've gotten used to the flavor of the way things are shaping up, but definitely a lot different than we predicted. So I don't want to jump into the topics that we talked about before. I want to talk a little bit about what just happened. And I know the Cubs took 2 out of 3. One of those games they really took on the chin in Milwaukee, but they salvaged it yesterday. And all I've read about is Javier Baez's wizardry over defense when he's on the base pass. So can you explain that shit to us Cardinal fans that don't know?
Well, he did it again tonight. He, on a single, Baez was on first and he scored. He causes the defense to either overthrow or
basically he causes the defense to do the shit he used to do in his first couple of years.
Yeah, he causes them to kind of freak out because they're not sure what he's going to do. So they forget to hit their cutoff man. They overthrow the third baseman and throw it into the stands and cause him to be able to take an extra base. But he makes them freak out for some reason. Makes them forget that, hey, I need to hit the cutoff man like my coach has been yelling at me since I was 10 years old. And they don't.
Well, looking at it, right, so they're tied with Atlanta 4-4. They're in the bottom of the 8th inning. I can't – or not Atlanta. I'm sorry, Washington. Atlanta's playing Arizona, which is probably a pretty good game too. They're in Arizona. Atlanta's up 2-0 on that one. And, oh, man, I got to say, no. Do I wait? No, I'm not waiting. F it. San Diego at Cincinnati. And, folks, let me tell you a little bit something about this game. San Diego
you got to watch
the Reds in Cincinnati. I can't watch it actually.
Oh no, yeah, that's right. You can't.
Right. San Diego playing at Cincinnati on a Thursday night, September 6th. Both teams are mathematically eliminated, and I predicted San Diego's share of ticket sales at this game in Cincinnati is going to be what, Elliott? 64 cents is what I predicted. That is their share.
64 cents.
That is their share of the revenue in Cincinnati tonight. 64 cents to the San Diego Padres. Now they can go out and buy themselves another free agent. They can promise another free agent that the grass. They can show him they can spray paint that grass greener. When they get over there, that spray paint wears off.
Yep.
Because it is just a terrible organization. Both of them really tonight. I can't. You know what? I can only talk so much shit about the Reds. They've handed it to the Cardinals. The last 3 series they played, they've taken all of them. So I feel bad, knocking on the Reds right now. I guess I'm talking about their body of work this year, and not their head to head because they've
their head to head against the NL Central it's tough because
it's deceiving, right? I mean,
very. So I gotta ask, were you able to watch any game today? Because you've got Atlanta, you've got Washington, you've got Cincinnati. Is Cleveland in your market too?
No,
were you able to watch a game?
I love that you're pointing that out because it's absolutely true. There are 4
MLB
playing in baseball. One of them, and by the way, one of them's final. So there are 4 games that are being played that have been played today. 2 of them are final. I'm sorry. Did they have the attendance on that Reds game? I'm going to look at it. Please have
1,500.
They usually do.
1,500.
Yeah, hold on. Normally they have that stat on here. I'm going to look. Hang on a second, folks. Bear with me. And yes, I love this shit. I love that. Don't they have the attendance on these? Oh, attendance.
Normally they do.
I got it. I call bullshit on this. 14,303 at Great American Ballpark.
San Diego fans travel. You know that, right?
No, they don't, because there are none. And if you don't live in San Diego, you ain't watching them.
That's right.
So, yeah, they don't travel well, man. That's terrible. 14,000 people flooded Great American Ballpark tonight to watch.
Must not have had anything else to do.
Yeah, they watched a tribute band of one of their favorite bands. That's what it's like watching the Padres. It is a tribute to a real baseball team. Is the San Diego Padres?
Right.
How's that sound?
Making Tony Gwynn roll over in his grave.
I mean that's the one thing about them that how lucky did they get that they got that guy and they had Trevor Hoffman. They've had a couple great players. I have all the respect in the world for those guys. But post Tony Gwynn, post Trevor Hoffman, this new no. Okay, enough of me bashing on San Diego. Bullshit. That's not going to happen. I do want to check in on one thing, Elliott. So if you could recap for us just what happened in that Brewers series, because we had Cato going a little nuts and then kind of calmed down on that last game. But walk us through game 1 through 3.
Cato should have had been a little bit more calm the first 2 games at least.
No.
I mean, the Cubs had that first game won. The bullpen gave it away, just like they're probably going to try and give this game away. It was a tough pitching matchup. Cole Hamels and God, who pitched for the Brewers that day? I didn't watch all of it. I had to go to bed. Yeah. New job's been a little bit early wake up. But Rizzo hits a 2-run bomb to take the lead in the 8th, and we don't have Brandon Morrow because he's had his bicep injury since what, May? It feels like it's been since July. So we don't technically. It's been a kind of closer by committee. I mean, I know we're relying on Pedro Strop to kind of do it, but man, they gave it up in the 9th, and the Brewers win, and then they just totally got their asses handed to them in game 2. Mike Montgomery gave up 4 runs in the first inning, and the Brewers didn't look back. They ended up winning 11-1 or 11-2, and I mean, after the 3rd, I think Joe just kind of gave it up, and he started bringing in some of the expanded roster to pitch, and it was ugly. And so game 3 last night, the Cubs were able to salvage the last game. Jose Quintana probably had one of his best outings of the year. Pitched into the 6th, I think into the first out or two into the 7th, and only gave up 2 runs. So the Cubs were able to score on Chasen or whatever it is. Chacin, yeah. And
hold on a second. I want to see if we can. I got Kyle Reese's show up.
Nothing in this world makes any sense anymore.
This guy is amazing.
Yeah,
see if he sees our message.
I would love to know exactly what happened in those meetings with the ownership and Dusty Baker. I would love to know.
Guys, this is Prospects After Dark. This is Kyle Reese. This is his show he does by himself. He does it like an hour and a half.
Kyle. Team of Rivals podcast. Hey, the Team of Rivals. We love them. We're cutting in for a few seconds for our listeners to hear you. Oh, am I allowed to say whatever the hell I want? Yeah, so first
is he wearing pants?
Is a really awesome thing. Your listeners are hearing it right now. But for my viewers here, if you've never checked out the Team of Rivals podcast, you need to. The Nats are a 90-win team now, a 105 team in April. Go. I don't get it.
If you have not checked this podcast, I'll just leave it on here for a second in the background. If you've not checked Kyle Reese's Prospects After Dark, he's part of Birds on the Black. We love those guys. And you got to check the show out. I mean, he knows so much. He's a machine. He answers questions live. It's a really wonderful show. It's a shame that we're doing this on the same night, because I'd normally be sitting there with it, on my laptop or something, checking it out. And I don't know that you've had a chance to check it out, but there he is, Kyle Reese, man. We're big fans of his, and you guys should check out that show. All right, back to the topic here, and I'll leave it on in the background, but I'm gonna turn the sound off. But check it out, Birds on the Black. Kyle Reese. You can follow him at what is his handle? It's at Kyler. It's KYLER 416, right? At KYLER 416. And if you check that out on Twitter, you can always watch it. It's you don't have to. If you want to watch it live, great, but you can watch it after the fact too, because they record it. So awesome.
Very entertaining.
Very entertaining. We had him on here. One of the best guests we've ever had on, by the way. That was hugely insanely fun episode. So anyway, okay. So the Cardinals, we had a bit of a scare. We had the Reds back in town, the dreaded Reds somehow.
Yeah.
And
they like to score runs.
They do for some reason at inopportune times for me. But the Reds come in. The Cardinals took the first game in the series. That looked like they were taking care of business there. But then the next two were.
Is that Pete?
Gaddis.
No.
Hey, you missed it, man. We had I have Kyle up, Prospects After Dark. He's doing a live show right now. I messaged. I turned it on. I cut in live a little bit so we could hear him, and and we had a little communication back and forth. It was fun. We'll check that out later. So anyway, what we were talking about was I started off with Elliott saying, okay, tell us about what happened at the Cubs series in Milwaukee. They dropped 2 out of 3, came back and won the last game. But Cato was going crazy a little bit. He didn't go. You're right, Elliot. You're right, because I was flipping through his tweets. He didn't quite go off the ledge like we're used to seeing.
We did get Gollum-esque tweets from him.
No, there was not
during the series.
I don't think so either. I don't think there was Gollum material in any of that. So
we did over the weekend, but we didn't necessarily get it during the Cubs series.
Mm-hmm. Right. So
although I think that had they not come back to win game 1, I think we would have seen it, because he was starting to lose it as that game went on.
I like how we're monitoring behavior of Cato Kalin. Like, that has become a topic on a baseball show of ours, Cubs and Cardinals, and we have a focus on Cato Kalin. Pete, that's something.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it actually does at this point. Okay, so Pete, let's go back to you before I go on to the Cardinals. I was just starting with the Cardinals Reds and then the Cardinals Nationals, but I want to hear your thoughts on the whole Milwaukee series. How much noise and you follow? You guys are all over Twitter like a hobo on a ham sandwich. So tell us about it.
It was frustrating. The one silver lining, obviously, is that they only lost 1 game in the standings, at least over Milwaukee. But there was some sloppy play, especially the first 2 games. That second game was
really, really difficult to watch. I don't know how I managed to keep it on because it just got out of hand so quickly. Yeah, frustrating to watch, but ultimately, they still have a 4-game lead in the division. So you don't chuck it all completely, but boy, oh boy, it was tough to get through. And there's Cole Hamels might not think that it's a rivalry, but the fans clearly do, particularly the Brewers fans. They are salty on Twitter, man. They cannot take they will refuse to take any slight, whether real or imagined. It was an entertaining series from that standpoint, just watching them lose their minds.
Well,
it's really not a rival yet. I mean, do I like the Brewers? No. Do I hate them like I do the St. Louis Cardinals? No. I mean, they're kind of like the Reds, and they're kind of like that little annoying little brother where you put your hand on their forehead and they just swing and they miss. That's kind of how I feel like the Brewers are.
I love it. I love that. That should be. They should have that as like a subset of our logo back there somewhere, like hidden between the buildings. Bernie Brewer just getting his ass kicked. Like a Cardinal character and a Cub character just beating him. Along with that
would be nice.
Cincinnati.
The two mascots, you've got Clark the Cub and you've got the Cardinal Redbird holding hands, kicking Bernie the Brewer in the stomach in the back alley, and then skipping off together.
Right. It's like we'll still be enemies, but we're brothers now.
Right.
For 5 seconds. Okay. So on to the Cardinals series. So I started with the Reds. The Cardinals dropped 2 out of 3. We knew that series streak was going to end at some point in time. It did. I would love to have seen them carry that to the end of the year, but I'd rather that streak's over.
No.
It's over, and now we just keep playing, right? So there's part of me is like, okay, so that's done. Great run. Pete gave him a shout out on Twitter. So on to the series against the Nationals. Really, the Cardinals bullpen, as much of a strength as I felt that was on that series winning streak that they went on, it really revealed that, man, while that appeared settled, that appeared they had a lot of options, a lot of guys that were going well. Now all of a sudden it looks like it's just like a domino effect. It's funny how baseball works like that. One closer blows a couple saves in a row, and then all of a sudden, the bullpen feels like it unraveled a bit. And hopefully they've stopped the bleeding. But even in the last 2 games they pulled out against Washington, its bullpen was still shaky. You even had Hudson, who had been going really well, coughed up a couple runs. It really reveals to me that things still have to crystallize enough for Mike Schilt to be able to know. Right now, he doesn't know who he can count on from night to night. He's got to do what any manager does this late in the year when the race is tight. You're still playing for a lot, and you've got to go with the hot hand. And at some point in time, you acknowledge what people have done, their body of work in a year, but you have to go with the hot hand when things are tight like this. So I can't tell you who's going to close by the year's end. And I can't tell you who is going to be that solid 8th inning guy. Carlos Martinez is now back off the DL, and he's been inserted into the bullpen. He's going to be a bullpen arm. So they've got a strikeout guy there, but they also have a guy who is, if Javier Baez was a pitcher, he would be Carlos Martinez. Like, you don't know how excited he's going to get himself, and is he going to be focused in?
Right.
Is he going to be able to bear down? That's always been kind of the wonder about Martinez. Is he going to figure that part out? So far, I still think he has moments where he doesn't look like that guy. But he's in the bullpen, so they have a strikeout guy down there now that you can look at it and say they really didn't have. Even with Hicks throwing 101 mile an hour pitches consistently, he wasn't getting a lot of strikeouts. So Martinez has a lot of movement. He can generate that. So the bullpen is still has a fair amount of question marks for this late in the year. So we'll see what happens. But the Cardinals, I wouldn't say that they've turned the ship around on that short losing streak, because those last 2 games weren't the prettiest.
And I wouldn't necessarily just limit it and say that Martinez, that they've got a strikeout guy there. You've got a strikeout guy who can give you some length, who's used to throwing multiple innings, and that's valuable if you need him and I would imagine that he's going to be willing to be versatile. If you need him to pick it up in the 5th or 6th inning because your starter just doesn't go, I'm sure he's going to be fine, and he can probably give you 2 or 3 solid innings.
Yeah.
Pete, now that you're on, I want to go to the big thing. You had mentioned on a text, hey, is Morrow done for the year? So I want you guys to talk about that for a moment, if you don't mind. Brandon Morrow, give us the situation.
So yesterday, before the game, before Joe's pregame press conference, there was some speculation on the internet about how close the timeline was getting on Brandon Morrow being able to return, because he still hasn't thrown off the mound. He's only thrown on flat ground, and without minor league games to ramp up in, it's all basically going to have to happen on the side. And people started running calculations and figuring that it was probably getting pretty close for Morrow to shit or get off the pot as far as his availability for the postseason. Really, I mean, the end of the season is ultimately just going to be for him to tune up. But at the pregame conference, Joe mentioned that it's starting to get to that time that they probably have to move forward with plan on moving forward without him in the bullpen for the postseason. That they're not going to be able to get him up to speed in time. But then you turn around, and so at game time yesterday, it looked like the Cubs were preparing to not have Brandon Morrow for the rest of the year. And then before today's game, Brandon Morrow comes out and talks to the press and says that he's actually going to be throwing off a mound on Sunday. And if you run that out, there's conceivably, assuming no setbacks, he could be back in time to get ramped up and ready for the playoffs. But tough to see now your big free agent signing as a starter and possibly your big free agent signing as your closer. Neither of them really being able to contribute for the better part of the season. And the Cubs had planned on having Morrow at the back end of that bullpen to sort everything out. You can have Strope step in. You obviously have Carl Edwards step in. Justin Wilson has experience as a closer, but none of them has been that lockdown guy, in the past, and particularly this year. They've all been up and down, and so the question then becomes, when you get into the playoffs, who's Joe going to turn to in the 9th inning?
Right, and I know one of the best things that the Cubs looked at was the way Morrow was used last year during the playoffs with the Dodgers, where he pitched every single game, and without fail, he was locked down. And if that was the plan for the Cubs, they might have to be a little bit more careful with him, using him in the playoffs. But we know that's not Joe's style with the way that he used Aroldis Chapman during the World Series run.
Yeah, because Joe we've seen it every year in the playoffs. Joe's circle of trust gets smaller and smaller as the Cubs advance further in the playoffs. And if you take one more guy out of that, that's fewer guys that he's going to go to, and then you just worry about the same kind of overuse of 1 or 2 guys like you saw with Aroldis Chapman and Mike Montgomery in the 16th World Series.
Yeah, that's Elliott was mentioning, Morrow's performance last year for the Dodgers, and that's it's always a tough thing when you think that, that's something you could have at this time of year, and then going into October, and then you don't have it, and you got to have. Sometimes it's by committee. Sometimes somebody steps up from out of nowhere and kind of takes that role over. I can relate back to the Cardinals when Trevor Rosenthal had to take that role over, albeit it wasn't at the end of the year. But a direct example I can report to you, he's a former Cub too, and that would be Jason Mott. Was brought in as closer as late as September in 2011, and he had to do that. He had to step up and do that job for the stretch run and then into the playoffs. And is Strope your guy? Do you guys have confidence in him? Just overall, if it's true, Morrow really isn't coming back. Yeah, do you guys have confidence that Strope's your guy, or is it somebody else?
As long as he's not pitching to the Cardinals, yeah, I'm fine with him. he's got some kind of mental block, man. I don't know what it is, but he seems to be excellent against everybody else. But for whatever reason, man, the Cardinals vex him every time.
Yeah, it was a little scary last night when he let the first 2 guys on, but then he locked it down and was able to take care of business. So I think Edwards gets yips too much to be able to do it. He's another one that I would think that could step up to do it. But at this point, the trust in him isn't there for him. I mean, he'll come in maybe a high leverage situation, but to close it out with the way he gets the yips and throws walks, it's Pedro.
I think it would have to be the right three guys coming up for Joe to go to Carl in the ninth inning. You know, it would have to be three favorable matchups for Carl. Joe's not going to throw him out there to face just anybody in that kind of a high leverage situation. I tell you, the guy who I would like to see, except that he's got a little bit of Tyler Chatwood disease now, but he's young. I'd love to see what Dylan Maples can do in the closer role for the remainder of the season, because he's got ridiculous stuff. His slider is insane. I don't know, Ron, if you saw Lorenzo Cain's at bat against him the other night, but
no.
Lorenzo Cain backed away from the plate on every pitch because Dylan Maples has that much movement on his slider, and Cain just quick. It looked like John. It looked like he did not want to beat him.
He's on lower whacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
Not hearing me?
No, we hear you fine now. We lost you for a second there.
So the Lorenzo Cain at bat, he did not look comfortable against Dylan Maples at all. Every single step or every single pitch, he backed out on the batter's box because his slider moves just that much. The problem is that he can't consistently throw it for strikes.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like you've got somebody you're intrigued with. It's a tough thing to do this late in the year, you know. But the Cubs have, you figure with 20-some games left, Cubs do have some cushion, right? They have some games where Joe can take more risks than some of the other guys. I mean, going to the Brewers, Cardinals, you know, the Dodgers are trailing them by 2 and 2.5 games. So, you know, you might get a game in there where you make a move you wouldn't normally make, but they're not out in front, so they're going to have to play the, you know, no pun intended, they're going to play the cards a little bit more close to the chest and not take as many risks. And so I don't see. I think they're experimenting in the bullpen now. The Cardinals will be with who sets up in the 8th and who closes in the 9th, but that's by necessity. They certainly wouldn't be doing that otherwise. So, and that's not to say that Bud Norris, hey, it was just a bad stretch for him, but it didn't look good. And in fact that he, you know, one game was a tie. And from what, of course, I wasn't able to watch it, but from what you hear, it wasn't a bad pitch. That was, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was Suarez who hit the 2-run home run when they were playing Cincinnati. But handing him a 2-run lead in the 9th inning is something you expect a closer to be able to lock down, and he didn't get the job done. He's been solid for him. He's been relatively solid all year long, but I think there's a lot of suspicion right now is the wear and it's just the grind of this. You know, all these teams have played a lot of games by this point in the year, and is he just wearing down a bit? And should you know, he get a rest from that 9th inning for a week or two before they give him another shot? And perhaps we'll wait and see. Who knows? It'll be that part will cause Cardinal fans, me not excluded. It'll cause us some anxiety over the next several weeks for sure. So we'll see what happens there. And so next thing that we had mentioned before we went on tonight, because we brought up his name a few times now, and that is Joe Madden. Why do you guys feel the umpires don't like him? Like, what's wrong with the guy? He's just weird. That doesn't mean he's not likable.
I don't think it was weird. They were talking about this on the Score this morning, and they were talking with Ozzie Gein about that. Like, do the umpires just not like him? He's like, just because he got thrown out in the game the other day, he's like, it doesn't mean that the umpires don't like him. You know, they have conversations all the time. These guys are around each other all year long, and Madden's been in the league for decades. So it's not like this is the first time he's ever been around these guys and that they're coming out and saying that. But if it is the case and the umpires are leaking this to somebody, that's that's not the way things are done in baseball. It's always kept in house. If an umpire's got a problem with them, they're leaking it to the press is kind of stupid, I think. But when you got that crew of Joe West, I mean, everybody's got a problem.
It's funny. You hear that name now.
And there was some egregious calls during that game with Joe West, as there always is, and he makes it about him. So
nobody saw that coming.
Right. As Ozzie Guillen put it this morning, he goes, "Oh, great, there he goes again."
Hey, Pete, interesting factoid about tonight. Okay, if you're a Charlotte resident and you happen to be a cable cutter and you love baseball, so you subscribe to MLB.TV, maybe you have a streaming live provider like a YouTube Live or DirecTV Now, like myself. There are 4 MLB games that were played today. 4. Okay.
You could probably watch what? One.
It was Chicago versus Washington, Atlanta versus. Well, that's not fair. Actually, you could have watched 2 because they do offer Fox Sports South on the DirecTV Now feed that I get. So I got to go back and correct myself here. I could have watched 2, but my motivation for watching the Atlanta Braves and Arizona Diamondbacks isn't high. So I'm not watching that. San Diego played at Cincinnati, which is just goddamn funny in itself. Just everybody drink that one in just for the next 10 seconds. San Diego was playing in Cincinnati on Thursday during a week. The attendance was 14,303, which I've already called bullshit on. There's no way that 14,000 fans were in the Great American Ballpark tonight to watch that crap.
Half those were the vendors.
That's a good night for the White Sox.
It's a great night for the Marlins and the Rays.
True. Yes.
Right.
That's three games for the Marlins. What are you talking about?
No, that's definitely 3 games to the Rays. I've told you guys about that. Went there to they were playing the Red Sox on a Tuesday night. Sarah and I were sitting somewhere behind the plate. It was actually pretty far back, so I wasn't going to pay an exorbitant amount to watch the Tampa Bay Rays at the time. Sitting like upper deck behind the plate, you could actually hear the umpire calling balls and strikes. So yeah, that was. I've been to funerals that have been more exciting than that particular game, and I thought they're playing the Red Sox. I thought there'd be a little bit more of a crowd there. You know, some of the snowbirds and transplants or whatever that would be down there. And well, I guess it was summertime, so it wouldn't be snowbirds, but you know, a lot of transplants or transient citizens there that just aren't packing that dome stadium in Florida for some reason. I can't figure it out. But yeah, anyway, so that's the funniest visual I've had today is looking at box scores and seeing that those 2 teams are playing each other.
Ron, just a point of fact here. Who do you hate more, the Cubs or the Padres?
I hate the Cubs more for sure. That's down to reality, right? Like who causes me more of a pain in the ass, and that's definitely Chicago. And then I've got you 2 to deal with once a week. But the most annoying team to me, like pure annoyance, like pick a direction, like choose what you want to be. Finally, San Diego Padres. Pete, you got me started on this. Okay. So I hate the Cubs more for sure. Always will. But San Diego, here's a team here. And not only do they annoy me with the Rule 5 picks, because I've overdone it on that, right? It's not purely about the Rule 5 picks. When you take a Rule 5 pick and you bring them into an organization like yours, and you at times take them out of better organizations that are actually competing, that actually have a strategy, actually have goals, you take them out of that environment and you put them onto your team, which temporarily they're like, well, now I'm on a major league roster and I have to stay there. But in the long term, what a disservice to players that have been selected Rule 5 by that shit organization. Because now you've put them in an organization that's going nowhere. They are a goddamn flying saucer that has no nav system. They're going to crash into a supernova and die. That's what they've done to those young players. They put them on a team. They'll likely be in the minor leagues next year because they don't have to keep them up at that point. And now they're in this gray or this nebulous of where the hell am I going next? And that's the disservice that a navigationless organization is doing. And yeah, they'll come out from year to year. They'll sign an Eric Hosmer. I hope he enjoys that shit out there. I'm sure the paycheck he's going to enjoy just fine, but I hope he enjoys playing for basically a primer. They're the primer of paints. They're what you put a real color over. That's the Padres. They're a primer of paints, and that's what you're going to be representing for the rest of your career, your contract. You're going to be playing. You're going to be playing as the primer. When the real fans of San Diego, who you're really shitting on right now, they want that nice coat of glossy brightness that they're not going to get from that organization. They're going to get tastes of it from time to time when they decide to go ahead and accidentally sign a few free agents, when they make some trades for guys like Kimbrel and Upton and everybody else, and then then they back out. They are absolutely one of those people that agrees to buy a home and then backs out. That's the San Diego Padres. That's the last attempt of the Miami Marlins, is to excite people, bring some higher caliber players in, promise something, and then really chicken shit out way too soon. So that's the Padres.
Bring them right to the edge of orgasm and then pull out.
Exactly.
That's what you say.
Exactly.
And this portion of Team of Rivals podcast is brought to you by Valspar and Ketley Realtors.
Damn right. So yeah, that's San Diego. So it's not just the Rule 5 pilfering, and it happens to struck my organization twice. It's what they do to the players they bring over that really pisses me off. So San Diego, figure something out, or just forfeit your team forever.
Move to Canada. At least you'll get fans to show up.
You know what? Some of these California teams, I can't knock them all. I mean, some have had a great run. San Francisco. But you know what? Lower half of California, that fault line can't fail soon enough. Fail and send not only that shit team out to the sea, and I don't want anybody to perish. Become an island somewhere out of U.S. territory, so where we can no longer have you within the league. Keep your citizens, keep everybody safe, but please split off from the mainland, float out there a little bit, and get the hell out of the league.
I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the day that San Diego finally puts it all together and they knock the Cardinals out of the playoffs, led by a roster of all those Rule 5 picks that they pilfered from the Cardinals.
And Hosmer is going to be the veteran on the bench that comes in and does it.
I am going to pop.
He's the next Jason Giambi without the muscle, right?
I am going to just sit back and enjoy the nuclear explosion as Ron takes the first 30 minutes of the show to rant.
I will probably expire before that ever happens to San Diego. I have a feeling. All right.
Pass away.
Enough of that. I have railed on them long enough.
Speaking
Shohei
of,
Ohtani. My God. I didn't see this coming. He is scheduled for Tommy John surgery now on a very human level here. I don't like to necessarily hear that about any player. I take no joy in somebody going down, but this injury was likely, right? We heard this shortly after they signed him, when reports came out about medical exams that that elbow was very questionable. Now it's a fact. He's probably not gonna play next year. At least he's not going to pitch
at all.
He's not going to pitch.
No, he's not going to pitch. But there's talk that probably about 4.5, somewhere between 4 and 6 months after surgery, he'll be able to hit.
Well, I'll go back to a case of Tony Womack doing that as well, where he had Tommy John as a position player. And then he came back rather quick.
Now, what I read also is he actually benefits from the fact that he's a left-handed hitter but a right-handed pitcher. And when it comes to hitting, the stress is on the trail arm. And so as a left-handed hitter, it's not his throwing arm that's trailing. And so there's speculation that he might actually be able to survive it and thrive. And then, of course, I'm sure you heard, Ron, of his human abilities last night after it was announced that he was probably going to have Tommy John surgery, and he hit not one but 2 moonshots.
Yep.
You must have been thrilled.
Well, always, I'm always thrilled when, before anybody proves anything, that we automatically anoint success, that we manufacture legendary status on somebody before they're ever able to prove anything. I'm always been a fan of that, Pete. You know me.
I know, and give him Rookie of the Year before the season's even over.
That's right, AL Rookie of the Year.
That's right.
Which is complete horse shit, by the way. You guys, let's tackle that one right now. Do you guys think that he's earned that he's earned those accolades already? Is that how you guys feel?
Honestly,
No.
I haven't spent enough time looking at the AL rookie race, but I don't know. I'd be very skeptical of giving him the Rookie of the Year based on. I mean, he wasn't even healthy all year.
He was healthy half the season. That
Right.
was it. I mean, he sat out for a while. No, he does that. I mean, if he qualifies for Rookie of the Year, it's probably just barely.
Yeah.
I truly don't see it. I don't know how the hell that looking at his numbers, looking at his body of work over the year. Yeah, he's uber talented in ways that most baseball players as athletes are not. I just don't see how or why in the hell that should happen. Really, in any way. I'd love to hear the argument that like, hey, this is why he's getting my vote. Absolutely, nobody else deserves it. I just don't.
If he comes back after the Tommy John surgery, and I mean, obviously he's not going to pitch at all next year, but maybe the year after, if he does come back and he is able to pitch for a full season, at least 150 innings, somewhere around there, have a decent record, and be able to hit 25 home runs and 100 RBIs and for decent average, then maybe he's probably in the MVP talk. But
we'll see.
MVP talk. Wow, that's I think that's a bigger stretch. I don't.
If you got a guy who can pitch 150 innings, have a decent sub 3 ERA, hit 25 bombs, and drive in 100 RBIs.
Well, yeah, that's different, but that's not happening this year. I just how we're saying already this guy's should be a Rookie of the Year. I just no.
I don't agree with that.
Glitz and glamour don't translate to helping your team win. They certainly don't. They don't show up on the back of a ball card. And I don't care what the stat wizards say about this. I mean, there have been other young players in this league that have certainly contributed more because they've spent more time doing what they're doing, and they've spent more time helping a team in a winning cause, which the Angels are not a winning cause. So he can't win that. No,
they've been so woeful this year that there's legitimate talk going on about what do you do with Mike Trout when he reaches free agency? Is he going to want to stay, or do you try and get the most for him because that's what it's going to take to make the team competitive. It'll be interesting to see.
I mean, if I'm Mike Trout and all the years that I've spent there, and my team hasn't been able to barely sniff the playoffs, I'm looking to do free agency. And I mean, maybe he has an honest conversation with management and says, listen, if you trade me, I'd like to be trade me to a contender. I mean, I'm like, because yeah. God,
I have no reason to hate that guy until that happens.
How old will he be?
You guys are right. If you're looking at this,
and you're
a GM that's looking out, and you're looking out 5-10 years, if you've got that much of a leash from your ownership that you put a strategy and a plan in place, and they're going to be patient with you for that amount of time, you got to think that you're the GM. You do ship him. You possibly ship him prior to his last year starting, and you get as much as possible. Which you could imagine the haul for that guy.
For a full year before he becomes a free agent, it's going to be a lot greater than it is as a rental.
Right, exactly. So I think that if you're a smart GM, you have to look at that hard. Also, you have to be mindful of what Mike Trout's celebrity and what he means to that club. I mean, you obviously have to be aware of that, but you're gonna have some pissed off people. But
update to the ball game. David Bodie breaking Washington Nationals hearts again. So
hey, remember the Cubs farm system is terrible, and they have no prospects.
They have no prospects.
Well, they are shit.
They're terrible. They have no prospects. There's nobody who's going to be there. They're already the Cubs are already over the hill, even though their oldest regular, I think, is. I mean, I don't know that you would call Ben Zobrist a regular anymore, but
over the hill and running on fumes.
Yep, they're running on fumes.
Oh, we got him face to face and live. He's got his tie on still. He's got his suit. He's looking dapper. He's looking sharp. And now we've got him in high fidelity.
Welcome, Pete.
Thank God.
Always wanted it.
Yes,
that's right.
Good to see you, gentlemen.
Thank you for jumping through. Thank you for pulling that hula hoop out of your ass to join us on the road, man.
You like that?
Yeah, I noticed you sat down kind of funny. Hey guys, I want to let's touch on the last topic here because I think the last one's going to take a little bit of time, which I'm fine with. But Josh Donaldson begins his life as an Indian on the DL, much like he ended his life with Toronto on the DL. Really, you look at this. Cleveland has a really good record. The AL Central is really, really terrible.
Oh, it's awful. It is the worst division in baseball
by far.
Because at some point during the year, Cleveland was in first with a sub 500 record.
Right. And it's hard to gauge just how good or bad they are this year because that division is so bad that they haven't had to pour it on.
No,
they haven't really had to try. So it's
love how that sounds.
It's difficult to say, hey, they're really not that good or they're really awesome because we just don't know. The one thing we do know is going into the playoffs, that team is going to be well rested, assuming their bullpen can stay healthy.
Yeah,
because Cody Allen and Andrew Miller have both been struggling.
Well, here's a couple things here, and this is obviously this is an effect of playing against American League Central teams. A lot of teams that just can't figure out where the hell they're going. One team that held on to the past probably a half season too long. I'm talking about the Royals. They should have shed some of those players last year. Instead, they got nothing for them. Yep. Cleveland is actually fourth in batting average in all of baseball. The Cubs are 2.
I thought batting average doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah,
it matters to me. I don't really give a fuck who you're
OPS.
talking about. You know what?
OPS is where it's at.
Give me a guy who hits 330 again. That guy is going to be an uber superstar in this day and age. A guy who hits over 330. I mean, we have to go back and do our homework. But I mean, wasn't there a time when we had like 4 or 5 players all batting over 320? And people look at those guys now like they're aliens. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Anyway, the Cubs are second in all of baseball in batting average. I did not realize that. They're at 263, trailed by the Braves.
Well, and I think a big part of that has been the very quiet resurgence of Anthony Rizzo. He had a rough start to the season.
Yeah.
And as the game is right now in the top of the 10th, he's hitting 286 in the season. I don't know that anybody expected him to be able to pull his batting average back up to that, but he's been hot.
I think over his last 12 games or so, he's batting like
500.
Yeah, it's like 417. I think it is. I heard today. I mean, he has been ridiculous, and it's been hot streak, cool off for a game or two, then he's right back on the hot streak. And it's really not, and he's getting close to his 100 RBIs again. I think he's got 89 after the game today. So, well, hopefully after this game, because
Taylor Davis just
our camera boy, Mr. Camera Boy, with Blue Steel.
I don't know about this.
So Taylor Davis last year is really when he caught people's attention. He's a catcher at AAA Iowa. He was there again.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yep.
He was a September call-up last year. He's back this year, and he has an uncanny ability for finding the camera that's on and just
staring
dead face stare at the camera. Until
like he was walking out to the mound once in a AAA game, walking to the mound, but then turned because he knew what. Yeah, I know that's actually funny. I hate him because he's a Cub, but that's pretty funny. Yeah, so I'm looking at this guy's on-base percentage. Chicago's out in front, even ahead of Boston. I guess I'm surprised because Chicago's offense has been really good. We know that. I mean, the record wouldn't be what it is if their offense wasn't good. Yep. I guess it kind of snuck up on me that it's been that good. 339 on-base percentage.
Of late, yeah, they kind of had a resurgence.
But in September, Pete, 339 on base percentage is not just good of late. That's the body of work this year.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, they probably went on a spell for a while where, you know, you kind of lose sight of the body of the whole year. You think, God, this is really struggling. It's really a struggling offense. I know they went on a stretch like that, but yeah, I mean, so you look at a lot of the offensive categories. Chicago was up there on quite a few of them. I'm not going to go through them all.
That's fine. So we had started down the Josh Donaldson road. How frustrated, how surprised were you that it doesn't really? I mean, there was a story that came out today that said that the Cardinals were in the mix in the talks, but
not as serious as what fans wanted them to be. Right?
I don't get the sense that they were all that serious about it.
No, I think the Cardinals' interest was probably heavier last year and maybe during the off season. I really don't think that at this deadline that they were in last minute discussions or pressing hard. I think if Toronto just wanted to hand him over for anything, maybe they take a flyer on it and it's no consequence, right? But the Cardinals didn't feel like giving anything that Toronto was interested in, so. They turned, nothing happened there. And here he is. We're in September. We're in a pennant race. Albeit Chicago has a cushion, I'd say, but you're still in a wild card race. And, maybe it's a threat later, but I mean, he's missed so much time. Like, what are you getting at that point? What are you getting? You might have him for the last week of the regular season. Like, what the hell are you going to get from him? You don't know. Cleveland can probably afford to do what they're doing with him because they're so far out in front that this is like this would be a kind of look at it as house money. If that guy comes back on fire, you've got something you didn't expect. That's a bonus, right?
But he's going to have to come back soon because the minor league seasons are all wrapping up. They're in the playoffs. Right,
he's going to have nowhere to rehab. Right, he's going to have nowhere to take rehab. You're right.
He's going to have to rejoin the team at this point.
Yep. So that's tough luck for that guy to be that hurt this year in his walk year when he could have got one more decently sizable contract, maybe for a 3 years tops. But that's not going to happen. Somebody's going to sign him for a year for like $12 million, and that's it.
That's absolutely what he's going to have to do. He's going to have to take a 1-year deal, or maybe a year with a club option, and rebuild his value.
Yeah, and that's going to be tough to do at 34 years old.
Yep, I don't see him getting anything beyond 2 years.
No, no.
Like you said, more likely he's going to get a year.
He's going to get a year because somebody's going to be like, "Well, we're only going to invest a year. Right. Maybe it'll be at the competitive club that has other options that can play third base, that has some cushion there. So if he goes down, which he's likely to, based on history, that we've got things that we can plug in there that can fill that void, that gap. But we're not going to count on Josh Donaldson next year, whoever signs him, to be some type of cornerstone game changer. If he is, great. But you don't build a plan around him next year. You add him as a role player to a team that already has a core. Would make all the sense in the world. That's what it's going to end up being. Yep. So we'll see. I mean, it's kind of a story, non-story, right? He starts his tenure with Cleveland. There'll be a short one on the DL. And you've been, by the way, Cardinal fans, you'd been doing the same thing on the Cardinals.
Right. And as I said last week, because I told you so, this was the right move for the Cardinals. Absolutely was. They didn't need to trade for him. Obviously, it looks like you could have gotten him on the cheap. There was a really good article on Twitter today. I forget who it was, but talking about the behind the scenes, how the market for him fell apart. And apparently word got out to the other teams that Donaldson didn't want to leave Toronto. And so none of the teams was willing to sweeten the pot, even though there were apparently 5 teams that were in the mix to get him. And so that depressed it. And also the fact that the teams knew that Toronto really did have to trade him. They were not going to extend him a qualifying offer in the offseason because he would take it. He would absolutely take it. Because he's not going to get he's not going to get $17 million, guaranteed. He's not going to get that. And so he would have taken that and stayed in Toronto. And Toronto's got, just besides the financial commitment that they would be stuck with, they also have a pretty phenomenal prospect in Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's going to be coming in the spring. And the last thing that you want is his ascent blocked because you have a $17 million commitment at third base.
One of the top prospects in all of baseball.
Yep.
But, Elliot, when you said all, why did your eyes roll back in your head? Just asking.
Because I was
asking for a friend.
I was peeking up at the TV to see
why
the first pitch that Chavez threw wasn't a strike.
That looked like ecstasy when he said all baseball.
It did look like ecstasy.
Welcome to the Team Rivals podcast.
Brought to you
by Crossing the Line.
Brought to you by Astroglide and Skin Condoms.
Which was I love when people everybody tries to act like a historian when Astroglide's mentioned. They're like, that was actually developed by NASA for astronauts to get in their suits.
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
That's not what it's actually used for.
It's a fantastic. No, it's not what it's for anymore. It's actually sold. It's sold in places like Walmart next to a certain birth control section. It's no longer for astronauts.
Wouldn't you like to see that? Just the guy walks in and he buys a whole case of it, and then the Walmart greeter's like, "What's up, man?" He's like, "No, I gotta go get in my suit."
Oh shit! Now this hold on. Great story for you guys. Right. Back at our old stomping grounds, Pete, in Normal, Illinois, the Walmart in Normal. Okay. I don't know what Sarah and I were doing there one night, but it was before we were married. We had whatever we had in hand or cart, whatever. And, that's close to the college campus, right?
Yep.
And so she goes, "Oh my God, look what that guy has in his cart." And I turn around, he's got this big, huge bottle of wine and a candle. And I was like, "Oh, okay." Initially, I'm like, just first glance, I'm like, those are the first two things I noticed. I'm like, "Oh, okay. So he's
romantic,
trying to have a romantic date or whatever tonight." Upon closer review of the cart, true story, he had a jar of peanut butter, wet wipes. Shopping cart. Let's review the shopping cart. Huge ass bottle of wine, candle, peanut butter, and wet wipes. You guys, we can do we can do a decision tree on this. We can do all kinds of things to break down what the contents of this cart were meant for. But Sarah didn't notice that stuff, and of course I did, and pointed it out, and then she looked horrified.
Hey, if it's your dog, it's all good.
I mean, do you put the wine in the dog dish first, just to and then
sweeten the deal a little bit?
No, I think the wine's for him to push down the shame at what he's about to do.
and the candles for the smell afterwards. I mean, how's that work?
No, he drizzles it on his own nipples.
Oh man, if I had the music, I'd put it on. Whatever movie Madonna was in. Yeah. Okay. We get back onto baseball here real quick, if we can. All right, guys. It's distracting at this point. Okay, so let's go to. I don't want to review the standings. We're all very aware of what's happening right now. It looks like the Cubs are actually going to jump to 4.5 games above the Brewers and 5 games ahead of the Cardinals. So I think at this point you can say that the race for the National League Central, the two teams trailing the Cubs are really focused on just holding on to those wild card spots. And I think if you're the Cardinals, you're thinking, okay, how do we ensure that one game play-in happens in Busch Stadium and not in Miller Park? That has to be the focus right now. That has to be the realistic goal. And this really goes along the lines, I think, with what we were predicting to walk into this year. This is what would happen. By the way, not that all three teams would arrive from the National League Central in the playoffs. We actually thought one was going to be.
There was somebody.
Well,
funny thing, Anthony.
I think the majority of us thought one was going to be from the West, right?
Yeah, but yesterday Anthony had some time, or maybe it was over the weekend, and he sent me an email. Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. It's Anthony Serafini, by the way.
Anthony Serafini.
I'll do the courtesy of
right. Occasional guest on the Team of Rivals podcast. He forwarded me. He went back and he listened to our Cubs prediction, he listened to our Cubs prediction show and wrote everything down.
He wrote everything down.
He compiled.
He's done way more work than we have to ever prepare for a show.
Yeah, he did that the first time he appeared on it, and I just was so disappointed in him. But yeah, as far as who would make it, we all no, not all of us. This is formatted improperly because it's on my phone. Oh wait, here we go. Yeah. Ron, you said the Cards and the Mets.
Fail.
Elliott said the Cards and the Rockies. All three of us said the Cards, the Cubs, the Nationals, and the Dodgers for the division. Elliott said Cards and Rockies. Anthony said Cardinals and Arizona. Somebody on that show said the Cards and the Brewers would be the wild card teams. I'm trying to figure out this.
Shut up, man. You already know it's you.
Yeah.
You already know it's you.
Yeah.
You don't have to dramatize this, Mr. Thespian. We know it's you.
Hey, and guess what? Guess who said that Addison Russell was going to be the biggest disappointment for the Cubs this year?
That's not a hard prediction.
Hi there.
You did.
Yes.
Look at his skull just grew like an inch in diameter.
I don't think it can fit in the picture.
The frame, it almost can't fit in the frame.
Now.
I'm actually 15 feet away from the screen. So
all right, so Pete saw it coming. He saw the two wildcard teams coming from the Central.
His magic 8-ball was working a lot better than ours that day.
And Pete's actually going to be right, I think, about the wildcard race. I really do think it's going to be that. It's a matter of who's going to play the wildcard playing game at what field. But since we're on that,
you look at remaining strength of schedule.
Well, let's look at that. Let's look at it right now. Who do you want to start with?
The easiest team, the team with the easiest schedule. That's still, I mean, technically the Nationals are in the playoff hunt, but they're not.
They're not.
The team with the easiest remaining schedule is the Phillies, and that's true if you include the Nationals. Of the other teams still in the playoff hunt, next easiest is the Cubs, and then the Brewers, and then the Cardinals. And then it just gets more difficult from there. So,
well, let's not skip over the Dodgers real quick because I want to talk about their schedule.
So the Dodgers are middle of the pack. If you, I mean,
well, they're 2 games behind the Cardinals as of right now.
Right, but I'm looking at strength of schedule. Right, the
Yeah.
Giants aren't going to make the playoffs. The Padres aren't going to make the playoffs. The Pirates aren't going to make the playoffs. So when you look at it like that, the Dodgers and the Reds aren't going to make the playoffs. Looking at the teams that are reasonably that you can reasonably consider in the hunt, the 3 most difficult remaining schedules are the D-backs, the Rockies, and the Dodgers.
And talking about the Dodgers schedules, now you threw out the Giants there, Pete, and I think that's the thing with I see the Giants. They end the season against the Giants.
Yeah.
Make no mistake of it, that is a rivalry that we're not near to because we are obviously in the Midwest.
It's fiery.
It's fiery. I mean, it's a thing that's nobody's going to roll over. If you remember back in the day, the Giants knocked the Dodgers out of the playoffs when they were clearly the Giants were out of it weeks before, and spoiled it for them. They played spoiler, and don't rule out. I look at that last series the Dodgers play against the Giants. They play the D-backs before that, then they play the shitbag Padres, then the Rockies, who are leading the division. Then they play the Cardinals for 4 games before that. The Dodgers have a pretty damn tough schedule based on where they're at in the standings and who they have to face. Their easiest opponent is going to be, well, I mean, look at this, guys. Tomorrow night they face the Rockies 6 more times, starting tomorrow night, 3 games. Then they play Cincinnati. They should sweep that damn series. If they're serious about doing things, they sweep that series. We say they will. And then they play the Cardinals in St. Louis for 4 games. I'll be at 2 of those games, by the way. And then they face the Rockies again at home. Then the shitbag Padres. Then they go to Arizona, and then they go to San Francisco. They play the Giants in San Francisco. That might be the hardest series they play if it comes down to the wire.
Yeah, because the Giants are going to be fighting.
They want to knock them the hell out of it.
Yep.
Oh yeah. You always play up a little bit when it's your rival, when it's your true rival, not when you're 90 miles north rival.
Right. You think like rewind the clock 6-7 years ago. The Cubs, if the Cardinals were like half game behind, like the Cubs wouldn't have went. Like we have nothing to lose. We are shifting like abnormally. We're gonna bunt when it's insane. We're gonna do a suicide squeeze. They're gonna do all those things to be like, F you guys. We're gonna make this difficult on you, and we hope you leave Chicago crying because we knocked you out of the playoffs, right?
Right.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Kind of like we did to you guys last year.
I would say that when the clinching series, Pete, was not like one of those down to the wire. That was like
yeah, but we knocked you out of the playoffs.
It was like a Jay Cutler telegraphed interception. Like that didn't shock anybody. Okay.
Speaking of Jay Cutler, have you guys seen the new meme?
Care.
It's awesome. Just do it or don't. I don't care.
Cubs win.
I sent you guys that on text.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. You did.
Yeah,
it's been floating around.
Yeah, it's funny. People have gotten really creative on that. I'm not going to reveal. Like, none of us are we're not going to get in that Colin Kaepernick thing. I mean, that's not our show. It's not our place. You know, I don't care one way or the other. But I will give kudos to the creativity of a bunch of shitheads out there that have a lot of time. Some of the spoofs they put on that ad. I saw a Tanya Harding one tonight. That's shit. I'm not going to try to find it, but it was like, you know, of course I take a knee, and it was Tanya Harding. I would take a knee for something I believe in. That's what it was. Just do it.
Awesome.
I mean, just people that have the time to put this stuff together. That's hilarious. And but whatever situation is what it is. That's not our bag. Thank God.
So the lead has officially grown.
Yep.
4.5 and 5.
So I mean, I feel no different than I did an hour ago. This is the two teams behind the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs are going to end up with the best record in the National League by far, I think. So yeah, you're right, Pete. It is official. It's 4.5, 5. St. Louis is 5 behind. Unless the Cubs completely have a rupture. Which is what you have to bank on, which is what you never want to bank on.
Well, that's actually an interesting thing. I was looking at another site when we were talking about strength of schedule earlier tonight. And there's one site that says the Cubs are the only team in the NL, the only division leader, whose chances at winning the division are entirely in their hands. Every other team needs help to win their division. But the Cubs, if they, and it's not a win out thing.
Including Boston?
Yeah. Well, no, just in the NL.
Oh, NL. Okay.
In the NL, they're the only. So I mean, it's so bunched up in the West, and the Phillies and the Braves are so close in the East. The Cubs are the only team that can entirely take care of business and not have to get any help from anybody else.
So here's where I'm hung up, guys. So I'm on the Brewers schedule now. They just finished a series against Chicago, and Giants visit them at home. I don't have high hopes for that. But then they go to Chicago from the 10th through the 12th. I'm not sure who to root for because my DNA says F the Cubs.
But
the reality
you've already got the explicit warning. You can say it.
Yeah.
Fuck the Cubs. Insanely. Fist them, if you will. But we need help.
Brought to you by Astroglide. Yeah.
Brought to you by Astroglide and Peter Pan peanut butter.
And Barefoot Wines.
Right. Barefoot probably was. I didn't pay attention to the brand. It was like it's probably that or like, whatever.
Yellowtail.
Yellowtail. Yeah, that's a candidate. Blackstone, something like that.
Yeah.
Rex Goliath. We can keep going all night. So they play the Cubs the 10th through the 12th. I'm really not sure who to root for here. I don't know if I'll be like playing a soundbite of "Go Cubs Go."
Yeah, you will.
Or do I say? I mean, there's a series over the weekend that could change things. So I think ask me on Monday, and I'll tell you whether I'm rooting for Chicago or not.
You have 3 games left against them, right?
We do, and it comes right before the Cubs. The last 6 games the Cardinals play are 3 against Milwaukee, and then to finish the season they play Chicago in Chicago.
Right.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that Lovie Smith and the Bears didn't understand. Right?
Rewind the clock a little bit. Things Lovie Smith didn't understand.
But no, you guys, no, hold on. You guys remember this, right? Playoffs 2010 going into 2011. The Bears could have eliminated the Packers in the playoffs and didn't. Like they didn't play well. They played soft. They played conservative. They did typical Lovie Smith shit. Mm-hmm. And they let the Packers back in the playoffs. Packers ended up eliminating Chicago in the playoffs that year. I hated that so much because they could have put them away. I would think that if St. Louis is in jeopardy of losing a playoff spot or a wild card or getting overtaken, Chicago could make a choice that weekend. They could say, you know what, we're knocking these assholes out. All hands on deck. Although we have the division wrapped up, we have nothing to lose. We're just concentrating on resting guys. Why would you let your rival into the playoffs if you have a chance to knock them completely out? I think that last series, if the Cardinals are on the cusp, if there's somebody like on their heels, imagine the Cardinals going into Chicago, only a half game lead on somebody for that second wild card. I would think if I was a Cubs manager, I'd be like, this is not a break. This is not a rest. We are not letting look at this. Look at how the regular season record has been. Like, if I have a chance to get these guys out of the picture, I'm doing it.
If it comes, I will tell you this though. If it comes down to the last game, Joe's not going to give a shit. He's going to give all his regulars the day off.
Really?
Yeah.
I would think totally opposite. I'd be like, no, I'm getting these assholes out of the picture.
Nope. Joe has done that consistently since he got there. That last day of the year when they've qualified for the playoffs, if they're in, he gives his regulars a rest.
And if somehow, if it happened where your rival came back and knocked you out of the playoffs, like in a divisional or NLCS, he's going to hear it. You know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had a chance to bury their ass, and you didn't do it. And that's like Lovie Smith's last stand with me. Like I couldn't stand him after that. Like, okay.
Two guarantees for Joe Madden lineups. The day after they clinch and the last game of the season, it's going to be the AAA roster.
Well, fine.
Everybody's going to get Rizzo will sit, Bryant will sit.
Well, the negative about that is if they pitch an unknown pitcher against the Cardinals, that's like putting out Nolan Ryan in his prime.
Hey, that AAA squad may fare relatively well. I mean, at least they've seen the majority of your starting pitching staff. So
true. That's
true.
not untrue. That's actually factual. Like we think that a pitcher's first time around the league or first pass through tend to have maybe some success where second, third time around they don't. But Pete's got a point. If you expand your roster in September, a lot of guys have already seen Dakota Hudson. They've already seen a Jordan Hicks. They've already seen whoever else they're bringing up. It's not their first time. So interesting twist on that. So, all right. This is going to be a fun stretch. And I think if you're a baseball fan of any organization other than San Diego, you're in September, you're still in contention. Things are still exciting. There's still anxiety, which is what you want to hope for going into spring training, that your team's still in it, that there's still something to play for. And so, we'll play a little violin for Cincinnati and San Diego tonight. And wish you guys better luck.
They're close to being. The Padres are close. I think they're only a game or two. Or no, wait, they're out. They're officially out.
They're officially
out.
out.
They're out. Yeah,
that's right.
They are eliminated.
I thought Cincinnati was mathematically eliminated as well.
No, not yet, but they're close.
Yeah. Well, no, it says an E. It says an E in the standings. They're eliminated.
So that was tonight.
Okay.
That was
good. Then. Well, Joey Votto can rack up his walks for the rest of the year and be the most unexciting first baseman in the National League. I'm fine with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it would make sense. The Reds lost tonight to the Padres. So, yeah.
So the two guys cornholed each other to eliminate themselves in the playoffs. Right. What a perfect – They should be prison inmates together.
So you got to think then – so, obviously, if Cincinnati's eliminated, then the Marlins are out, right?
Let me look.
Marlins have to be out.
I'm looking, man. No, they're 3 games out from being eliminated.
Are they really?
Yes.
Wow. Interesting.
Yep, they have 56 wins. Cincinnati had 59. Oh, but it's National League Central who has better records. They're done.
And Atlanta only has 76 wins.
Yeah, but the wild card. I mean,
and technically, San Diego's gone. San Francisco's 13 games away. Yep. Arizona and LA are both 22 games out from being eliminated. So it's going to come down to the last week for those guys.
Yep. Can't wait.
What fun.
Can't wait. Yes.
So speaking of that Arizona-Atlanta game, Atlanta's jumped on top. They're up 5-3.
That game that you can't watch?
No, I can't. That's one I can watch. I can watch
one
that.
You can
watch.
Watch.
DirecTV now, man. We get Fox Sports South.
And you can watch the football game, right?
Football?
Yeah.
You mean soccer?
No, football.
Oh.
Started tonight.
Which one?
Falcons,
Eagles, yeah.
Is it a preseason game?
No.
Regular
Is it
season.
regular season?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
okay.
shoot! I forgot to check my fantasy team.
Yeah, I'm not watching it.
And in something that's not a surprise to the greater LaGrange and Western Springs, Illinois area, Lions Township alum Jake Elliott made a 26-yard field goal in the second quarter.
Yeah, but Elliott could kick a 26-yard field goal.
Could he?
Yeah, I think I can.
Under pressure?
With 8 300-pound guys bearing down on you and 2 guys who run 4.2 40s coming at you.
Well, he'll probably collapse like a, little sissy.
Maybe. No.
I
can punt it through, right?
No, you can't hold the ball. It has to be on a tee.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe.
Pressure.
No, you could drop kick it. He could do a drop kick.
Doug Flutie's like last one that did that, right?
Yep.
That's
right.
I used to kick field goals in high school. So
did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I consistently I underrate Elliott.
I know, right? He's a surprise.
He is. He's sneaky.
State champion wrestler, and all of a sudden he says, "No, I was a kicker." We're like, "Oh."
Actually,
it's the glasses that throw us off, man. I mean,
my freshman year, I was the kicker, and then my sophomore year, I was the long snapper.
That's a violent transition.
That is.
Yeah.
Well, because my junior year, they made that rule that you couldn't touch the long snapper, so I would snap, and
that should have been my job.
I would run all the way down the field, and I'd pretty much be there by the time the guy caught it.
Because nobody's stopping you.
All right. I think baseball's expired
That's
tonight.
right. Yeah.
Pete.
Yes, sir.
Do your thing.
Do my thing. Jesus, I'm so out of it. I didn't have my thing up and ready to go. But
that's a greatest soundbite ever on the show.
You're welcome. When we are not live and you're not watching us on YouTube, and as the great Adam Maurer reminds everyone, if you're not watching live, you're not living. But when we're not live, you can find us.
You got to say that with much more. Come on,
I will. I'll get to it. When we're not live, you can find us at teamofrivalspodcast.com, on Facebook at Team of Rivals Podcast, on Twitter at Team of Rivals Pod, and on Instagram at Team of Rivals Podcast. If you want to contact us, hit us up at the show at teamofrivalspodcast.com. You can contact Elliott directly on Twitter at
TOR_Elliott. Sorry.
Way to pick up your cue. We've only been doing it like this for a year.
I know.
Ron, you can contact him on Twitter at
TOR_Ron75.
And obviously you can catch us anywhere you listen to podcasts: iTunes, Radio Public, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, and Google Play. And really any other podcast catcher app is going to find it. All you got to do is put in a search for Team of Rivals Podcast. And really want to encourage everyone who is watching now or who's listening after the fact, tell your friends about us. We know that there are a lot of you who are listening, but we need you to tell other people about it. You don't need us constantly reminding you where to find us. You've already found us, but why don't you tell somebody else? And as always, don't forget to visit the team store on Zazzle. Just go to the website, top of the page. It'll take you there. You can get your interlocking heart-shaped mugs with the Team of Rivals logo on it. And of course, if you're not watching live, you're not living.
Absolutely. And the website, by the way, is teamofrivalspodcast.com. Store button at the top leads you to the Zazzle. Okay. Hey, a couple things I want to talk about here. Of course, that anybody who's some of you that are listeners of Team of Rivals know that I do another podcast called the Cardinals Nation 24/7. If you're watching live, you see it. Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. I do it with Chris Lawless, who's a great friend of the show. He's shown us a lot of support since January. We're doing something a little different over there. We're going to keep our weekly show, which I'm a part of, but we're also going to branch off and do a little something different. We're going to do series previews and recaps. Those are not going to be by me. Those are going to be handled by some of our members of the Cardinals Nation 24/7 group. So if you're a Cardinal fan, listen to this, check that out. The first show is going to be on Sunday. We have a lot of people that are eager and anxious to share their knowledge. They follow baseball as passionately as we do, and so I'm looking forward to seeing what they can bring to the table as far as series previews and the most recent series that recap. So I'm excited for those folks. A lot of those folks have never done podcasts before, but they're anxious to get on them and talk. They're active on Facebook and Twitter, and Gene Bonds, who we know, Crash, is going to be one of the hosts on the show on Sunday. And so it'll be fun. So anybody's checking that out. Also, if you're a Cardinal fan and you follow Two Birds on a Bat, they're doing a live show next Friday. That'll be the 14th. I'm sorry, I got my days wrong. A week from Friday, they'll be doing a live show on the 14th at Patios in St. Louis with Benji Molina. I'm actually going to be present for that.
Cool.
So I'll be there
Awesome.
with Chris representing the Cardinals Nation podcast on there. So we'll be down there with Benji and their group, and we're going to be talking some Cardinals baseball live at Patio. So if you are a listener and you live near the St. Louis area, please be there. It's at 4 p.m. On Friday the 14th, and looking forward to being there for that. All right, guys. Another great one.
Before you go out,
yeah,
I accessed the very useful IHSA website, and found that Elliott hasn't told us the whole story. Not only was he the 1999 state champion at 135 pounds, he finished third in 1998. So he made it to the podium 2 years
this has been my problem with Elliott, is his transparency and his honesty.
I know.
It's been a problem since we started the show. He doesn't share facts with us.
No.
He doesn't share interesting things with us. He shows up on here. You hear him crack a beer every once in a while. Sometimes he burps in the mic, which he hasn't done lately. But he doesn't share these.
I apologize.
You withhold most of the interesting things about you from us. First of all, we're your friends. Shame on you.
Yeah.
And then from the listeners who would find it interesting as well. So you're an interesting bag of tricks there, Elliott. And you surprised me and pissed me off all in the same breath.
Okay.
Go.
All right.
Defend yourself. Defend yourself for like 30 seconds.
Do you want to know another interesting tidbit? I placed 8th in the nation my senior year as well.
Sweet Jesus. And he has no expression on his face saying that.
And as a team, we also won state twice, both times undefeated.
I don't care about the team thing.
Okay. Yes.
You should be only in it for you. And we're only interested in what you did.
That's what I did.
Doesn't resonate, does it? You don't care.
I mean,
most humble guy I've ever. You are the Mike Trout of wrestlers.
The Mike Trout.
Oh yeah. Ellie,
Do it.
Yes, that's what we need. We need you to adopt a Randy Macho Man Savage personality for the next show.
What you gonna do?
And not shit yourself trying to do it.
I am going to send you a case of Slim Jims, man. All right, Ron, let's call it a night. Take us.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're tuning in live tonight, and we'll be talking to you same time, same place next week. As always, love you all. Talk to you soon. Bye bye. Mother. I know what the problem was. That was a false start. I wish I had a gun sound. That was a false start. We love you all again.